You're now listening to Sound Talent Media. Check out more shows at soundtalentmedia.com.
Shopify grows your business no matter how far or big you grow. Shopify is the global commerce platform that helps you sell at every stage of your business. Whether you're selling your fans' next favorite shirt or an exclusive piece of podcast merch, Shopify helps you sell everywhere. Shopify powers 10% of all e-commerce in the U.S. Allbirds, Rothy's, Brooklinen, and millions of other entrepreneurs of every size across 175 countries. Plus, Shopify's award-winning help is there to support your success every step of the way. Because businesses that grow, grow with Shopify. Sign up for a $1 per month trial period at shopify.com/income, all lowercase. Go to shopify.com/income now to grow your business, no matter what stage you're in.
What is up, everybody? Welcome back to another episode of the podcast. This may sound a little different because although I am recording this in a studio, I'm not recording it in my own studio. No, I have surprisingly found myself in Daniel G. Harmon's studio, who you've heard on this podcast before. If you haven't, go look it up. It was a great episode. Daniel's a great guy. But I surprisingly found myself in his studio after I went up to Seattle to take my children to go see Metallica and Pantera. We missed Mammoth, unfortunately. Long story, traffic from Portland, blah, 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 blah. But yeah, we came up here to see Metallica and Pantera, and we had a great time, Vincent, Rocky, and I. And we were about to leave, and Daniel offered us a little extended trip. So here I am recording this intro in the basement, and I'm not sure how loud I can be. So I'm talking a little bit different than maybe I normally would because my family is just upstairs, and I'm trying not to disturb them, but also trying to record this intro. Anyway, I'm recording in Daniel's studio, so thank you to Daniel for giving me the space to do this and for helping us extend our trip by an extra day. It was really, really nice of you and very, very enjoyable. Thank you. Also, if you haven't checked out his music, you should do that. And if you haven't checked out his episode, you should do that. Anyway, on with this episode. Today I'm talking to Karl Sanders from Nile. Yeah, you probably guessed that by clicking on this episode. Nile has been producing heavy music since I was even aware that music was a thing, let alone metal was a thing, let alone rock was a thing, let alone something as extreme as what they produce. So, yeah, to say I was excited is a bit of an understatement. Really, truly, this was an honor. I really enjoyed talking to Karl. I really enjoyed him taking the time, and the chat was really, really good. We had to try to condense as much as we could into a little bit shorter of a time frame just because, well, Nile's going on tour. So if they're coming near you, I highly suggest checking them out, and I highly suggest checking out the new record. Karl gives all those details. But you know what? Let's get into this episode. Let's get into this episode of the podcast right now. I can't believe this happened. I mean, let's go. Come on, we're talking to Karl. Let's go. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to another episode of the Tone Mob Podcast, the show about guitar stuff, occasionally, sometimes. I'm your host, Blake Weiland. With me today, I have Karl Sanders from Nile. What's going on, dude?
Hey, thanks. Glad to be here.
Yeah, thanks for hanging out. I appreciate it. I think we have a good thing going. I could tell before we hit record. The vibes are right, I think.
Yeah, man, I appreciate that. I really hate that feeling sometimes when you feel like a trapped animal and you don't know what's going to take place. Yeah.
Yeah.
But it was fun. We've been having fun so far.
Yeah, I like everybody just kind of to just get as relaxed as possible. We'll just go for it. We go with the flow. We see what happens, and just make it fun for everybody. That's the whole point, right? Why would we do any of this if it wasn't fun?
Dude, we could be doing something else, so we might as well have fun.
Exactly. I could be fixing my wife's bike right now, which I will have to do later.
My wife rides a bike too, and I'm always having to put air in the tires.
Yes. And I'm like, if you're riding the bike, shouldn't you know how to put air in the tires by now? I'm trying to show her. She's a smart lady. I think the trick is she does know. She just likes me to do it instead. That's really what's going on.
I know that's exactly the case.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
But anyway, well, you guys are coming out with a new record, and we obviously can get into all that stuff. But I just got just some other questions, because I'm looking back at Nile's career, your career, and I'm thinking you guys have been on the cutting edge for so long, and with very aggressive music. You guys were very early to this, being this extreme and this kind of widely accepted. It's always weird to me seeing bands like Lorna Shore that are springing off of that and how massive they've gotten. I never thought that this genre would have the kind of acceptance that it did. You know, could you even fathom that back in the day?
No, I absolutely could not fathom that. I remember going to an early Morbid Angel rehearsal. Mm-hmm. Right, this was before Altars of Madness. Actually, it was like 3 or 4 years before Altars of Madness. And hearing what they were doing and going, this is the most amazing extreme metal that I've ever heard in my entire life. But, you know, is this ever going to be widely accepted? I can't, you know, but loved it. And I was hooked. Mm-hmm. At that point, it was like, you know, success be damned. This is some great music, and I want to be part of it.
Yeah, I remember getting into punk and hardcore and finding the more extreme genres of metal fairly young and confusing my parents. And I remember Dad being like, well, these guys can't make any money. And he probably wasn't wrong at the time, to be honest.
Still not wrong.
He's still not entirely wrong. But, you know, somehow there's enough people that have gravitated towards it. And I don't know, I feel like there's something genetic, because my kids are real young, and every time they hear heavy distorted guitars, they perk up. They're like, oh, well, what's that? I need more of that. They've been exposed to a lot of this stuff fairly yearly, and I was an experiment. I didn't want to force them into anything, but I just thought, well, I like this stuff. I wonder if they will too. And I play it, and they're like, hey, Dad, I want more of that. Like, okay, well, we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
Yeah.
But, you know, so when you guys started, was it just like, we're going to do this, like you said, whether we're successful or not? But I mean, is it shocking to you? Like, you're still here, still doing it, still just crushing, and possibly, from my viewpoint, bigger than ever. Is that an accurate statement, you would say?
Well, I hope that we're still, you know, going on the incline. That would be better than the alternative.
True.
It would be very Spinal Tap-ish.
It needs to be a documentary, maybe. We could follow you guys around with the camera. You think that'd be fun?
It'd be fun for about 5 minutes.
So supposedly this is a guitar show. We go all over the place.
I see some guitars in your background there.
There's a few, and it's. I might be a little bit addicted. I can stop anytime. It's not a problem.
So you say.
I can stop whenever I want. I just don't want to.
There you go.
Yeah. But how has your rig evolved over the years? Obviously, stylistically, it's always been heavy pedal to the metal. But what did the guitars start out with, and what are you playing now? Take us through the whole journey. I love this kind of conversation.
Well, back in the day, when we were, you know, just in the rehearsal room and playing local shows, I was playing a Charvel San Dimas. I bought it in 1982 at Rhythm City in Atlanta. Yeah. Back then, that guitar cost $800 brand new.
Whoa, that's a lot of money back then.
Back then, it was a lot of money.
Mm-hmm.
And it had one pickup in it, which was an Invader. No, it came with a Jeff Beck, and I put the Invader in it. That's
okay.
Right.
Got it.
Because the Invader just had the weight, right?
Mm-hmm.
And it was always Marshall heads, Marshall cabinets, like all the way back to high school. When I got my first used Marshall, I was like, this is it.
Mm-hmm.
This is it. 'Cause it just does a certain something that speaks to the soul when it goes clang. Nothing else, does it the same way. Like I also play Engels these days and Spawns, great amps, which do a similar kind of thing. But over the years, I started with the Marshall. It was a JMP. I can't even remember. Sorry, editors.
You're good. You're good.
Then when the JCM 800 came out, I got that one. I had taken my life savings to get a JCM 800, and man, that was a sound with a Boss, the orange Boss distortion pedal in front of it, right, crushing the front end. That was the sound. I was like, not touching this. This is the thing, and I stuck with that for a lot of years. Now I don't use the orange one. I use the yellow one. They make a Wazacraft version of the overdrive. That's what I'm using in front of the Marshalls these days.
Nice. And is that it? Just that pedal, single pedal, or do you guys have some atmospheric stuff though from time to time? You got to have some other stuff going on.
Yeah, for a long time in the early days, I did that stuff off a Roland GR1 guitar synth, which was super primitive back in those days in the 90s. Nowadays, computer libraries have gotten way more sophisticated.
Yes.
So, yeah, I'm not using the GR1 anymore. Sold it years ago. Was glad to be rid of it. It was a headache to use.
And do you use the computer libraries, like you use a laptop and stuff for that stuff live? Or
Right, live, that stuff comes off the laptop. If it was an acoustic instrument that I played, like I got a Baglama Saz and a Glissentar and a few other things laying around, then it's the part that I recorded, but the laptop is playing it when we go live, because there's no way you can take those kind of fragile instruments on tour.
No.
You can't just throw them in the van and expect them to last through the tour.
It's not going to happen.
Yeah, it would be reduced to just colorful pieces of little driftwood. So yeah, all the other stuff is on the laptop. It makes life much easier. I used to play all that stuff as well off they're like Taurus pedals, but they're MIDI controlled. So I would play all the extra stuff with my feet while I was playing guitar and singing. And that, it just, with the airlines being what they are and the price of excess baggage, I was like, there's got to be an easier way. I'm going to learn to do this on the laptop. That's how we went down that road.
Was your sound engineer the one activating that, or are you still activating that?
No, I do it.
You do it?
I don't trust anybody.
I like your style.
Yeah, very distrustful. My drummer said to me the other day, he's like, Karl, you don't trust anybody, do you? I'm like, dude, when it's your name on it, you can't leave it in someone else's hands, because whatever thing they do, fans are still going to blame you. So you might as well, for better or worse, be accountable for what you're doing.
100%. I have seen that happen with friends of mine in like different areas of the musical instruments industry, where they paid somebody to do something, their name's still on it, and then it's like not really their fault, but also kind of is. At the same time, you did sign off on it. So I know you trusted somebody to do their job, and you should be able to trust somebody to do the job. But like you said, when your name's on it, all fingers are pointing at you, buddy, no matter what.
Those are tough lessons to learn. Like, there were a couple albums where we made that got our name on them, And even though we got talked into something else, we're still responsible to the fans for, choices made on the making of those records. So, be nice, be naive. It's not a good thing. No, sir.
No, I get it. But hey, that's how you learn too. So sometimes that's the only way you can learn, and you figure it out along the way. And I guess the real key is, as long as you learn from it, it'll be okay, and you don't do it again, I guess is the main
We got
goal.
a sign in the band room with at the top of our dry erase board in our rehearsal room. It says, if you must pay a high price for a life lesson, make sure it counts.
Oh, I like that. That's good. That's good. I have a feeling that's going to be the snippet that we share on the social medias.
Well, I can't claim authorship of that brilliant quote. I'm sure I read it somewhere, but it really is true.
100%. 100%. So what would you say, this is, sort of ties into this. Maybe that is what you would say. But what if you were talking to a young band, maybe they're starting to make a little bit of a splash in their local scene, and they really want to go for it? Maybe in in a similar genre, or maybe outside of it. But anybody who wants to do this for a living, anybody that's been doing it as long as you have, I like to ask, what would you tell a younger band or your younger self, knowing what you know now?
And I often have that thought, if I could time travel back, find my younger self and say, dude, don't do that thing, or do this thing instead, or whatever, all the time. Right? What would I tell my younger self? I think you got to believe in yourself and what you're doing. That's the thing that will sustain you when everything seems impossible. And it all seems like, why am I wasting my time? No one cares about this music. Well, you should be making music that you care about. That love that you have for whatever music you're creating is what will carry you through all the hard work and sacrifices and things that you're going to have to do that you won't like doing. And there's lots of them.
Oh, yeah.
Right? If you're not willing to make those sacrifices, you should be doing something else, because there's a million of them, right? You can't even start to list all of the things in life that you probably are going to have to make choices about. Do I eat this week, or do I, put strings on my guitar? Do I pay the band rent, or do I put gas in my car? All these things, they will test you.
And they'll continue to test you for a long time. It's one of those things where the listeners have heard this a million times, but I'm obviously very into music of various kinds, and I knew early on, even though it was all I could think about was making and recording music, I knew that I wasn't cut out for road life. I was like, I ain't built for that. I hate road trips. And that's just the start of it. that's just it, the easy part, so to speak. It's everything that comes with it. I was like, there's no way I have the mental fortitude to go through that to make this into a career. Fortunately, I was stubborn enough and able to weasel my way into the world in a different way, which works a little better for my life. But it was not something I thought was even possible, and I think you hit it right there. All those reasons, I'm just being perfectly honest, I wasn't willing to make those sacrifices. So I'm glad there are those of you out there that do, so I have something to enjoy.
Well, there you go. I think you said that really, really well. There's a lot of great guitar players. Man, every time you turn around, there's an incredible guitar player to see. And nowadays we can see them all on YouTube, which is a great thing. to be cherished about the times that we live in. But, music business is not the same thing as music. And being a great guitar player is not the same thing as being willing to get in a van with your buddies and,
and
grind it out and be poor for a few years. While you're, chasing this dream of, okay, maybe we can take our music and bring it to people. It's two totally different things.
So segueing a little bit more into the music itself, and this is a question I'm sure you've answered 14 billion times over the course of your career, but I'd love to know where the ancient Egypt theme and interest started with you, because I feel like that had to have started early on. I remember like reading about mummies and stuff as a kid and being really into it, but it didn't like carry through the way it has for you. Where did that start?
Hi, I'm Vincent, and I'm here to talk about the Maris Mercury X. My dad's always going on and on about how cool Maris is. He really went off on one about the Mercury X the other day. He said something about a 4,800 hertz sample rate and 99 preset locations and 33 banks, and something along the lines of the most advanced reverb pedal ever devised by man? That's all true, but I only care about one thing. This pedal sounds sick. So make sure you check out the Mercury X and all the other fine products at maris.us, as well as fine retailers worldwide. All right, Dad, now can I have my Pocky?
How exactly do artists get their music on Spotify, Apple Music, Deezer, Tidal, all these services? How in the world do you get your music there? Well, in the past, you had to use something called a record label. But these days, you can use DistroKid. DistroKid is the absolute easiest way to get your music up on streaming services. And it's the most affordable way to do so. Not only do plans start at $22.99 for the entire year, that's less than $2 a month, DistroKid also does not take a cut of your streaming revenue, unlike some other services out there. Even better if you sign up by going to tonemob.com/distrokid. That's tonemob.com/distrokid. One more time, that's tonemob.com/distrokid. You'll get 30% off. That's right, 30% off their already extremely reasonable prices. So go to tonemob.com/distrokid and get your music out there. We are brought to you today by Sweetwater, specifically the Gear Exchange. You may have heard about this. This is a place where you can go to buy and sell your used gear. Maybe you got a pedal over there that's just kind of collecting dust. Maybe there's something you've been eyeing from the Sweetwater catalog. Well, right now is a great time to turn that unused gear into something you're actually going to use. Even better, if you sell on the Gear Exchange, you can keep 100% of the sale as long as you choose a Sweetwater gift card as your payout method. That is not too shabby because, let's be honest, most of this buying and selling we do is just to fund new gear purchases, and that is a great way to reach a wide variety of customers and keep 100% in your pocket, or rather on your pedal board. So go check out the Sweetwater Gear Exchange and turn that unused gear into something that's actually going to help you write that next huge riff.
Well, you're right. When I was a kid and I saw the Mummy movies and all that, which when I was a kid, all we had was the 1933 Boris Karloff mummy.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, absolutely. It's a good mummy.
And a few others. But my dad was a fan of all the big old-fashioned epic flicks, like Ben-Hur, Ten Commandments, Land of the Pharaohs, Sodom and Gomorrah, all the Hercules movies, all those epic things. So I had that as a kid.
Mm-hmm.
And years later, when I found myself in a band called Nile, and I went, okay, well, now we got to write some songs. I asked myself, well, if I were a listener, what would I expect to hear from a metal band called Nile?
Ah.
Okay. Well, I guess if we're going to write songs about ancient Egypt, one of us is going to have to do a little bit of research, so we know what we're writing about.
Right.
And by default, that guy was me. I was a guitar player, so I was supposed to write songs. So, okay, here we go. But the more I was researching stuff to write those first Nile songs, the more I started enjoying it. I was like going to the library, hanging out at the local technical college, because they had a T1 connection back in those days. So you could be logged in to any college library across the country. It was
Okay.
cool.
Yeah.
I remember always going in and printing out stacks of papers like, this would be a good song, this would be a good song, this would be a good song, print. Yeah. So the more I researched the song lyrics, the more I enjoyed it. So it was like, okay, this is fun.
Mm-hmm.
All right, here we go.
It's interesting. I didn't expect the name of the band. I kind of just thought maybe it was all an amalgamation that happened at the same time, but the name really inspired the concept, it seems.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
And
what
where
did
did
you do? Yeah.
Yeah. And where did the name obviously came from the Nile River, but like you just like, this sounds cool, or was it deeper than that? Because it does sound cool.
It's a silly story. We were a 3-piece band and we didn't have a name because our singer left. We were a 4-piece and the singer left. So we were just like, okay, we can do something new here. What do we want to do? What are we going to call ourselves? And we wrote out 500 different band names on notebook paper. Like, what about this one? What about this one? What about this one? What else? And then 500 names later, they were all awful. And we're like, what are we going to do? An ex-girlfriend of mine just happened to stop by and heard this conversation we're having about all these names suck, right? She goes, quite famously, it's Vicky Smith. She said, well, why don't you guys call yourselves Nile? You like playing that Middle Eastern stuff. What about Nile? And we all kind of looked at each other and went, that's not a terrible idea.
Mm-hmm. And there it was.
And there you go.
I'll admit it. The first time I saw your guys' name was that drew me in. I was like, Nile, interesting. I wonder what that's about. And I listened to it and went, oh, that's what that's about. Yep. This all makes sense. I remember reading it first, thinking it sounded cool, and then diving in, which I guess is, even in the internet age, that's still kind of how it works. You probably read about it first or hear somebody say it first before you ever hear the music, oftentimes.
Yep. It's that simple. Like, okay, here we go.
I'll admit, I'm not as bad about this now, but as a kid, I know that there was bands or artists that I saw the name of, and I'm like, well, that sounds dumb. I'm not gonna pick that up.
Exactly. Like, yeah, you see that name and it either fires your brain or it makes you go, what is this?
Yeah. No,
Next.
thank you. Next. Yep, exactly. So where do you guys go, or you personally, when you're writing or you're thinking about sitting down and writing? Do you try to go get inspired by listening to certain things, or do you just let it come to you? What's your process like?
My process is really simple. I start with the words first.
Oh, cool.
I just write the words, and I just let them take whatever form that they come in. Like, a lot of the stuff comes from ancient Egyptian texts, so there's a bit of reductionism, right? The ancient texts, they're really long, way too long for a metal song. So you kind of have to reduce it down to what might work in a metal context. But once I have the words and they have some sort of form, I print them out and just take them to the room where I practice in every day.
Okay. And
I'm riffing around. And while I'm riffing, going wherever it might lead, I have the words. That's kind of a guideline going, okay, well, what might these words mean? What does this riff make me think of? If I'm thinking about these words, where did this go? And I think, it takes me to some places like I would have predicted that, but that's fresh. That's like new, right? If you play riffs and you just use the words to go by, maybe it isn't A equals B plus C. It may be more convoluted, but it doesn't matter. As long as you start somewhere, and for whatever reason you go somewhere, well, you've gone somewhere.
That's right. There you are. You've ended up in a place, which is, I think that's really cool. I feel like it's a little, it's not like it's completely unheard of, but I think it's a little unorthodox starting with lyrics. I mean, some people start with melodies, some people will start with riffs, but starting with the actual words, what you're going to say roughly, I think is a little uncommon, but a very cool approach. I think it'll like you say, take you places you wouldn't otherwise have went.
I got really fed up back in the early years when we were, first in the band room, and we wrote songs the normal way every band does. Like, a guy walks in the rehearsal room and goes, "Hey, I get a guitar riff. You got a drum beat?" And you assemble this thing, right? That sooner or later takes the general form of a song. And then somebody's got to go, okay, now we got to put words to this. Where do the words go? What should the words be about? Do these words fit with the song? And it was really just an agonizing process for me, because sometimes you'd have this great, amazing piece of music that you worked out with your bandmates in the band room, but is it in any way connected to what these words that you arbitrarily put to them, hoping that they work out? That's an agonizing process to me. It seems like wandering around shooting in the dark, hoping that you hit the mark. Right? When you've just spent a month of your bandmates' time working on, like, oh, we got these cool riffs, these cool drum beats, and it goes together and it's all wonderful. But the words can ruin it in a minute.
They can. they can. I know it's something that it sounds kind of strange being a guitar obsessed person the way I am, but the words to songs, I was the guy that would sit down with the lyrics and sit there and listen and read the whole thing. I do that a lot less these days. I kind of miss it, actually. Maybe need to get back to that a little bit. But I would, and some bands would impress me with that side of it. It's like, oh, this is like really clever wordplay and really interesting lyrics. And it made me, as a fan of like writing and all that stuff, like literature wise, I was like more into bands that put thought and time into that side almost immediately. And it made me like not that interested in some things that I don't want to sound all like weird and hipster, but like that didn't have a whole lot of depth there, or was sloppy with the way they put the lyrics together. It was just it can ruin the whole thing for me. Like you hear something like, oh, that's a good beat, that's a good written, and you're like, what did he just say? Like, no, he didn't say. That's not what he said.
And then you go, oh my God, that is what he said.
Yeah, and you're like, oh, it's a grown man. My wife and I are also big fans of country music, and I always feel like I have to add a caveat to that with like, not Luke Bryan. Sorry, Luke, if you're out there listening to this. Not my thing. And part of that is the words. I'm like, I can't believe a grown man is saying this.
I know, right?
This is rough.
Some of that is so embarrassing.
But I guess it works. So who am I to judge?
Right? Who are we to judge? If there's somebody out there playing some kind of music and there are people who enjoy that kind of music, then okay, have at it.
More power to them. It's just not for me. And that's okay. And I've gotten better about that as I've gotten older. I used to be pretty pretty critical on things. And I'm not going to say I've totally outgrown that, but I've definitely gotten a lot better at like, hey, just shut up. Let people enjoy things.
It'll be all right.
Yeah.
I promise it'll be okay.
It'll be fine. It doesn't affect my enjoyment of other things.
Right?
At one time it did, and that's a whole different story. I was stuck at a job that I had to listen to that stuff all day, every day, and it really impacted my ability to function.
It's just like after a while, you want to kill somebody.
Yes.
After hearing the same rotation of modern pop country all day long at your job, you want to kill somebody.
I did. I did stand up one time and just like, because I'm obsessed with music, and I was like, you guys realize I've been here for 4 hours and I've heard this same song 6 times.
Mm-hmm.
And they were like, and that's the difference. They were like, oh, really? I don't even really notice. Like, to me, it's all I can pay attention to.
Right. When I hear music, it takes my brain. Like, some people don't even hear the music. Right? They can listen to it all day and not get a single thing out of it. But I'm not like that. When I hear any kind of music, my brain is right there on it.
Mm-hmm. Are you doing, I wonder if you do what I do. I start immediately. I'm like, okay, that's an interesting choice with the reverb on there. I wonder if they compress that guitar this way or that way. Or like, I wonder what they're doing there. Oh, that's in, like, even if it's something I'm not that into, I'll sometimes pick out like an engineering trick or something I can't quite figure out, and it makes it a puzzle for me. That's where my brain just goes without me even trying. What are you listening for?
It's tough to let go. When you make music, right, and you understand the craft behind it, it's hard to just let go and enjoy something for what it is.
I know. I can do that sometimes, but not as often as I'd like. I can do it more live than I can with recordings.
Right on.
I think that's I don't know what that is exactly, but recordings I'm like very analytical about, and live I can kind of just, all right, maybe because I know it's a different thing. Yeah, it just is. No matter what you do, it's gonna be different, and it's almost a different skill set.
I believe so.
Playing live than it is in the studio. For some reason, it's easier for me to let go in a live setting.
Well, you have to, right? Because you have to be in the moment. Like, you can't worry about, what you did 5 bars ago. You gotta be like focused on right now and what's coming next.
So, segueing a little bit, because this is a subject that comes up a lot with metal bands in particular. A lot of the modern bands are starting to go the digital route. Now, obviously, we talked about the laptop for certain things. Have you thought about going full digital rig, or are you still dedicated to that tube life?
For me, I've been playing tube amps for, I don't even want to do the math because it's scary, but about 50 years. I'm 61. I've been playing since I was 9. I've been playing, in bands since I was like 16. So for me, I can't let go of like the way it feels. Like I can't do it. Like I've tried other people's modelers, and if it works for them, okay, but it doesn't work for me because it doesn't feel. I've got 50 years of playing a tube amp, so I feel very disconnected. Having said that, though, I've got a quad core like to do my effects. Right before that, I had the Axe effects too, so I love it for the effects part of it. But the actual part of my tone, like, I got to be connected to the front end of the amp, like MIDI, gain pedal, front of the amp. I can't play without it. But for effects devices, I love it. That's great. I've recently started being able to insert the laptop as a block on the quad core grid, right? And that way you can use all your VSTs like off your laptop. Anything that you would use a VST on, like I've got my Lexicon and Eventide and Abbey Roads plates all inserted as a block.
I did not know you could do that.
Grid, because it also works as a USB interface, right? So I just load up whatever VSTs I feel like, and it follows the MIDI switching. So it's a piece of cake.
That's
right?
brilliant. I had no idea it could do that. I knew it could do a lot. I feel like every time I talk to somebody that uses one of those, there's a new trick I learn about it. That's wild.
Dude, YouTube is like a university of because everybody puts things up there. So there's so much content and knowledge just sitting there like a university. It's amazing.
Yeah.
We live in amazing times.
Yeah. Yeah, you can really, I can't tell you how much money I've saved because of YouTube and my general handy ability. Never ran into this particular problem with my place before, but
dude,
YouTube.
Not too long ago, the transmission on my GMC locked in gear, couldn't get out, right? And I was like going, man, this is, to have this towed down to the local transmission place and have them rip apart my transmission, we're talking thousands of dollars. Even if it's just the most minor repair, they're still going to soak you, right? So I'm like, I don't know what to do. So I called my father-in-law, and he looked it up on YouTube. He had the all up, and he figured out, which video to watch where someone else had the same problem, and it's literally a $9 little plastic part about this big is all that needed to be replaced.
Really?
Didn't even have to take apart the transmission. It was the linkage that does the thing, and you get the part at AutoZone for
pop it in
a few dollars. So
how long did it take you?
After we got the part, not long,
nice.
Within minutes back in action.
Wow, that's a good feeling.
YouTube, right? This is the beauty of YouTube, and everybody can post anything they want to, so somebody's going to post something that you might find useful.
Drop them a comment if you do. That's what YouTube loves, comments. So you find somebody's dishwasher repair video that saved you $1,000, at least throw them a comment saying thanks, because
it's the least you could do.
It's the least you can do. It's absolutely incredible, and it's just like some of it's like, wow, that's all that is, huh? Like you said, $9 part, and even if you would have taken it in and had it done, if that and that's all they change, that's still going to be a couple $100 because labor's not cheap. That's what it is.
Right? They got to make money. They have bills to pay.
Exactly. They don't work for free. Mechanics don't work for free. I used to be one. I didn't work for free. Yeah. Wow. Let's see. I was 16. It was about 8 years. I was doing trucks and heavy equipment mechanic. Yeah. Before I then was working in the oil industry, and then managed to weasel my way into the music world in podcast form, which is really weird to tell my 16-year-old self. Well, you're doing this now. You're laying in grease, but eventually you're going to be talking to Karl on a podcast and nerding out about music stuff. That's what you're going to do. It's a very favorable turn of events for me, I would say.
Well, that sounds like a great story.
The listeners have heard it a lot. That's the nutshell version. But yeah, it's been a really weird and fun almost 10 years, I think. Maybe I'm like 8-ish. I have to do the math, somewhere in that ballpark. But yeah, it's been a wild ride. But speaking of wild rides, so you've been all over the world. You've been all over the place. And anybody that's toured as much as you have, I always like to ask them this question because it generates some interesting topics. What's one of the main or weird or things that stand out to you that you've seen on tour that you're like, wow, this was a wild story no one's going to believe, or something just crazy that whatever you can share that won't get anybody arrested?
Well, what happens on tour has to stay on tour.
Most of the time, yeah.
Yeah, so, trying to pick a PC version of a story that's entertaining, that's a challenge.
I believe it. I believe it.
Yeah.
No comment?
Yeah.
That's fair. That's fair. That's probably for the best.
Yeah, we don't want to make whoever's going to edit and censor this video, we don't want to make them work for their money.
No, that would be terrible. Nick would be so upset. So what is kind of the next thing for you? You looking down the road, obviously you got the new record. I'm assuming there's going to be a tour coming up that I hear you're getting ready for. Where are you going?
September 1st, we start European tour. The first show's in Essen. We got 4.5 weeks or so. We'll come home, then we'll go to Japan, Australia, New Zealand, Thailand, Singapore.
Wow.
A few other places. Then in January and February, we're going to do the States. That's a co-headline bill with 6 Feet Under.
Nice.
And that'll be a long tour. That's 6.5 weeks. A grinder.
Wow. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's intense. Like I said, I'm not built for it. So I'm glad that you are.
I don't know that I am. As the years go by, the dumb stuff gets harder. Like just staying healthy is a challenge.
Hello there. I'd like to introduce you to your new best friend, the Chase Bliss Audio Lossy. Lossy is a collaboration between Chase Bliss and Goodhertz. And it's meant to give you some control over those weird digital artifacts that come with very compressed audio. You're hearing it right now. All the changes that are taking place are strictly coming from my playing dynamics. I'm just interacting with the pedal and letting it do its thing. In some true stereo goodness. If you'd like some more details about Lossy, I'd invite you to head over to chaseblinssaudio.com. I think you're gonna like what you find.
Hey, what's up? My name's Lurk, and I'm the host of Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast. Every week, I have in-depth conversations with bands from all over the scene, big and small. We also like to keep our finger on the pulse and showcase up-and-coming bands on the show as well. So come check out Lambgoat's Van Flip podcast.
The Helping Friendly podcast explores the music and fan experience of Phish through interviews and deep dives on shows and tours. For more than 10 years, we've created insightful and fun discussions about our favorite band, and with the help of our guests and thematic series, we're still discovering new angles of appreciation for Phish. And when the band is on tour, we provide a review of every show the following day. As one of our listeners said, any Phish fans that enjoy meandering conversations and incredible insight on new and old Phish shows, this is for you. Highly recommend. It's not just about the band and the shows, it's about the journey getting there. Throughout 2024, we're going to be running down the top 25 Phish tours of all time, and that'll be interspersed with show reviews and regular episodes. Join us and check out the Helping Friendly podcast wherever you get your podcasts.
Yeah. Do you have any methods that you've been deploying now to try to boost your immune system or whatever you can do, because it's not an easy thing to do.
You know, good old-fashioned hand soap and hand sanitizer works incredibly well. Yeah, that, and go to bed. That's really useful advice. Make sure that you sleep and eat some decent food. That's tough, like, because when you're on tour, you're eating road food all the time.
Yeah.
So that'll wear you down. Between the sleep and the poor nutrition, after a few weeks, you're done.
Yeah, 7-Eleven isn't exactly a bastion of nutritious, healthy food these days, though there might be some slightly better options than there used to be, but roller dogs are just not good for anybody.
I no longer have, like, judgment on, like, when people on tour are doing insane stuff. Like, I understand now, right?
Yeah.
They haven't got much sleep for the last month. They're not eating great. There's probably bills to be paid at home. You know, somebody's calling them every day going, "Can you send home money? We got to pay the blah, blah, blah bill." You know, if you got ex-wives, that's another thing. No wonder people start acting crazy on tour after a few weeks of no sleep or poor sleep.
Yeah, sleep. I'm a baby with sleep. My wife thinks it's hilarious because if I don't get at least a good 7, I'm just like,
right?
And she's like, come on, like, you're an adult. And I'm like, not when I don't sleep. I'm not. I turn into a big baby man. It's not good.
Right? It's challenging. Like, bus pulls up to the venue, you crawl out of your bunk, no coffee, no shower, you're carrying your stuff, and there's fans waiting there. Just want to say hi, right? Say hello. And, like, you feel like awful. You still got to try to be nice, you know. Fans are the most important thing there is. Without fans, there is no music show. So they got to come first. But, man, after a few weeks of living like that, no wonder people act crazy. So I have no more judgment anymore about guys on tour. I'll leave you alone. It'll be all right. See you after we have some coffee.
Yeah. Yeah, there's so a lot of my friends obviously go on tours, and it's when they come through town, if I see that they're coming, I'll shoot them a message, be like, hey, look, I'll bring you some food or some whatever, like, we'll hang out. And if they don't feel like it, like, I'm not mad about it. They're like, oh man, I just need to chill today. Like, please do. Like, I understand. Like, I don't fully understand because I don't do it, but I understand what you're going through, and I'm not offended if it doesn't work out to hang with some nerd in Portland. It's okay.
Yeah, it's absolutely nothing personal. There's friends I really want to see, but I often can't because, just because I got to do my laundry on tour. Right?
Right?
Right? The most awesome person that you meet on tour is the person who helps you get your laundry done.
Yeah, 100%. It sounds weird, but and then there's the other thing too, is sometimes you end up in a city, you show up, and you have enough time that it feels like a lot of waiting, but it's not actually enough time to, like, go do anything.
Right.
You'll get in, you'll sound check, and it's like, okay, now I have like 2.5 hours. It's like not really enough time. Like, maybe I can go get something to eat and get back, but then you're running a risk of maybe not making it back on time, which that's bad. It's like so you're just kind of stuck.
Yep. You're in prison
for 2.5 hours, 3 hours
prison.
to do But then it's a long time. You're like, well, I'm sitting here in this chair for then it's a long time, but it's not long enough to actually escape, which is a weird cycle to get into.
Yeah, it's very depressing actually. After a while, I was in Paris 5 times before I got to see the Eiffel Tower.
Wow.
Mm-hmm.
What?
I tell that story often, and it's true, and it's illustrative that, you think you're going to see all this great stuff. You can go on tour, and you may or may not. Just depends. Like, occasionally you get a day off.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, occasionally.
Yeah. I bet that 5th time was really frustrating. Like the first through 3, you might be able to be like, okay. And then the 5th time, it's like, really?
Yeah,
I'm here 5 times.
That to your mom, right? Try explaining that to your mom. Well, did you have a nice time in Paris? No. No, I got to see nothing. Mm-hmm. Well, you really should take time to enjoy the things, then, blah, blah, blah. You know what mothers say, right? Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Like, you're not wrong, Mom, but also, I'm stuck at this venue. So that's where I am.
And of course, your wife or your girlfriend thinks you're living it up, doing all this stuff on tour. Oh, you got to go to Moscow. You were in London. I bet you did all kind of fun stuff. I'm stuck here at home. Like, no. I didn't get to do anything.
It's not what it looks like. Sometimes it is, though, right? Like, sometimes, like,
once in a
while, you find yourself somewhere you're like, all right, this is pretty unique. Right.
It was actually easier when we were like a support band, right? Because then you don't even get to load in your stuff until the other band is finished sound checking. So you actually, if you get to wherever you're going, you got a couple hours to kill. So that's awesome. I remember the first couple of tours that were like that we got to see a bunch of stuff. Not every day, but once in a while. Mm-hmm. Usually in some awful place like Topeka, Kansas. Nothing against people in Topeka. We have some great fans in Topeka, but Topeka is not New York City. You have to
That's my understanding.
2 different things. 2 completely different ways of experiencing life.
2 very different, there's a lot more options in New York City. Let's just put it that way, right? There's just a lot more in general.
Yeah.
Yeah. There's some places, and you know what? I love New York City. It's one of my favorite places I've ever been, but I also am not built for New York City. I can only be there for like maybe 10 days. And then
they say it's a great place to visit, not so much to live there. My brother-in-law lived there for years, so that was fun. Yeah,
it's a weird thing. When we flew out, I didn't experience this so much, but when we drove out of the city and like started driving to Boston, and when we drove out, it felt like as soon as we got on that bridge and we were headed out, it felt like somebody just opened a pressure relief valve. It was just like,
right,
like, oh, I didn't realize I had like this just slight pressure on my body the whole time I was there. And I don't think I could function very well long term there. But it's a very special place. I do love it quite a bit.
Yeah, man.
Yeah. Well, we are approaching the end of the main episode, and I have a couple classic questions I like to wrap these episodes up with. But before I do, I like to give the guests a chance to take the stage. You're talking to a few thousand people right now. You can shout out anybody you want to shout out, plug anything you want to plug. Say hi to your great aunt or whatever you want to do right now. The floor is yours.
Well, we got a new record coming out August 23rd. It's called The Underworld Awaits Us All.
It's good. It's good. You guys are going to want to listen to it. Do it. All right. Final questions. You might have answered this one already, but maybe not. Let's see. What is your favorite Boss pedal?
The Boss OD1.
The OD1? Yeah, I thought you were going to say that. It came up.
The Wazacraft version. Right,
Wazacraft specifically.
Wazacraft. Yeah, those are good.
Mm-hmm.
Really on point.
Final question, possibly related to the New York City topic. What is your favorite kind of pizza?
New York style pizza. Duh.
Do you have a favorite New York pizzeria?
No, whatever one you're nearest to, that's the one to go to.
All right, I like it. Plain old cheese slice, pepperoni. I can get a little bit nerdy about this.
I like cheese and sausage. That's what I like.
That's a good vibe. I like that a lot. Well, Karl, thank you so much for taking the time to hang out with me. I really, really enjoyed this conversation, and we'll go ahead and hang it up and see what we can get into on Patreon if that works for you. All right, everybody. For Karl, this is Blake, and as always, folks, good luck and good tones. Alrighty, folks, there you have it. There's another episode in the can. Again, I'm sorry if I'm talking a bit weird. I'm trying to use my podcasting / radio voice while also not using it at the volume I would typically use it at. So I probably sound like a little more NPR or maybe just dumb. Whatever it is, I probably don't sound quite like my normal self on these intros because I'm still in the basement here. Anyway, if you want to check out more with Karl, if you want to get into some extraterrestrial territory with Karl, then go over to Patreon. For $5 a month, you can help support the podcast and get extra bonus content. And if you do that, I would be eternally grateful. It would mean the world to me, and it helps keep this show going. Thank you so much to everybody that's done that. Thank you to everybody that supports the show. And if you like this podcast, you would like it to keep going, please share it with somebody. I know, I say it every single time. But that's because that is the biggest thing you can do. It is seriously so important. Sharing this show is what keeps it on the interwebs. So thank you so much. Thank you for all the support. And make sure you check out Nile. I mean, if you haven't checked out Nile and you're listening to this podcast and you like metal in any way, shape, or form, I am astonished that you have not checked them out. But if you haven't, what are you waiting for? Go do it already. No, seriously. Pause this. Go, stop. No, just stop it. Stop this episode. Go check out Nile. All right, later, folks. One last thing before we totally sign off here. I just want to remind you that if you do any shopping at Stringjoy, that's Stringjoy guitar strings made in Nashville, that will help me out as well. As I've said for years, I'm heavily involved in that company, and I really do think they're making the best products on the market. So if you would like to try custom strings, go to tonemob.com/stringjoy and check them out today. I seriously love what the team down there is doing. I help them out with all kinds of things, and by you supporting them, you are also supporting me as well. And hey, you need some strings, so why not get some custom strings just for your guitar and playing style? Again, the link for that is tonemob.com/stringjoy, and that will take you right to their website, and you can do all your shopping through there, and that will help everyone involved out. So thank you very much. Talk to you next time. We are brought to you by the wonderful folks at Gun Street Wiring Shop. Yes, Gun Street Wiring Shop. I've talked about them before. I used to say based out of Bend, Oregon, but guess what? Sean moved to my neck of the woods. Sean's in Portland. Sean is awesome and has helped me with a bunch of stuff lately. And if you have wiring needs for your guitar, he can help you too. If you want to get weird with it, he can get weird. If you just need to spruce things up a little bit, there's your guy. He takes all the guesswork out of doing your guitar wiring, and he makes it simple, and his customer service is top-notch, and I can't say enough good things about Gun Street as a company. I really respect Sean and what he's all about, and the product is top-notch. I've got 3 different guitars that now have Gun Street harnesses in them, and I could not be happier. So go to gunstreetwiringshop.com and check them out.
Hello out there! Hi, I'm Hal Schwartz.
And I'm Flynn McLean. We want to tell you about our podcast, None But the Brave, which is dedicated to taking a deep dive into the work of Bruce Springsteen.
We're currently in our 5th season. Our latest episodes focus heavily on Bruce's 2024 tour and have featured such guests as Anthony Castrovince from MLB Network and Barstool's Kirk Minahan.
We're also covering the 40th anniversary of Bruce's biggest record, Born in the USA, and as part of that, coming up this week, Uprock's cultural critic Stephen Hyden returns to the show for a fascinating hour-long conversation about his new book, There Was Nothing You Could Do, Bruce Springsteen's Born in the USA and the End of the Heartland.
To listen, you can go to our website, mbtbpodcast.com, or subscribe on your preferred podcasting platform.
We hope to see you further on up the road.
Thank you so much. We'll be seeing you.
Hello, everybody. I'm Bruce.
And I'm Nolan, and this is the Corner of Gray Street podcast. As longtime Dave Matthews Band fans, we set out to create a podcast to dive deep into the past, present, and future of DMB.
Not only do we recap and review shows within an ongoing tour, but we revisit past shows from throughout the band's history, conduct interviews with a wide variety of guests with ties to DMB, and create unique and exclusive content like our Concerts on the Corner series.
Whether you're a fan of the band or just a fan of great music, we think you'll find something you'll enjoy. We can't wait to see you on The Corner of Gray Street.